Hello everybody, part 3 of the tour. I don't know if you remember The Sweet Life of Zack and Cody. Well, that was where they did the Tipton Hotel. In front of us, we're going to be coming up to a big pothole, and then we're going to make our way to the Prudential Center. Will be coming up on our right. You can see that in front of us, that walkway linking the Copley parking lot to the Pru. You can also go up top and visit the top of the Hub, a nice restaurant that rotates around, gives you a 360 view of the entire Boston area. Boston is known for many things: baked beans, a lot of its factories. Now, myself personally, this is my favorite Boston factory. I wish it was around in the 1700s, the Boston Cheesecake Factory. We're going to be taking a right on Belvedere, and on our left we're going to come up to the Christian Science Center. Unfortunately, there's a lot of construction going on our left, but that is a giant wading pool that reflects all of the buildings and so forth in Boston, but they have it shut down at this particular time. We're making our way around the Christian Science Center and coming up to the oldest fire department in Boston, Engine 33, Ladder 15, and on the left was what is the Boston Architectural College, and also right next to that was the police department. That was all the fire department. And it's kind of strange. If you could see the street in front of Ladder 15, it was so small that the ladder truck couldn't fit in it, so they had to dig the road down on an angle so it would be able to back into the building. That is the oldest fire department in Boston. It happens to be here in the Back Bay. In front of us, we'll see the Massachusetts Turnpike. It starts right here in Boston and it goes all the way through New York and wherever you want to go. You can go to Niagara Falls right from that road. You'll be seeing part of Charles Gate East, Charles Gate West, and the Fens on our left. There's all different architecture. Coming up in front of us will be one of the most terrible, Japan had King Godzilla, so what does Boston have? The Green Monster. And there it is, Fenway Park's Green Monster. You'll see it off to the right, that large green wall. Fenway Park was opened to very little fanfare. It had 11,000 seats not even being sat in the day it opened. It was kind of a murky day anyway, but the year that Fenway Park opened, which Fenway is the oldest ballpark in the country at this point, was the same year the Titanic sank, 1912. So a lot of people weren't in a festive mood. We'll get a view of some of the statues here. Ted Williams statues, and you'll see the Fenway Park and Yawkey Way. There's some more statues down there. If you have the time, I would say you come down, and they offer daily tours of this area. Now, it's kind of funny, during a baseball game, this Shell gas station you see on your left, probably one of the closest spots you can park at near Fenway Park, and they get $90 for you to park your car in there for a game. can see way off in the distance the Prudential's towering over everything. And you can see the green space. This is the Back Bay Fens. This is where Fenway Park actually gets its name, from the Fens. It was a green space, beautiful. There's statues and walkways, beautiful architecture, bridges, winding, rolling green paths all through the area. Up ahead, you will see on our right that during World War II, there was food rationing, so these public food areas, public gardens were started, so people would actually have a place to grow their own food. Everything was being rationed for the war. This will be a nice view of the Fens coming up on your right, and you'll see some bridges, and you can look off to the right and you will see a beautiful look of the waterways and so forth that run through. It's a little easier to see it when you're on a giant tour bus. So my car's a little low. We're going to be coming down Boylston Street in front of us, and once again you'll see a view of the Prudential. And a lot of these buildings that are going to be on our right have a lot of meaning in Boston. The Historical Society on our right. We're going to be coming up to Symphony Hall. We'll see if we can get a glimpse of Symphony Hall. But this area is a lot of restaurants, outside dining, in the nice weather. And they have a lot of the colleges here. The School of Architecture will be going by again. And Berkeley School of Music is also up ahead on our right when we get to cross Mass Ave. A lot of students at Berkeley sit out here at night in these little pavilions and eateries, and they just entertain the crowds with their music. If we look down Massachusetts Ave as we go by, you look at a building, a large building with a green roof. That'll be Symphony Hall, way off down in the distance. I don't know if you can see it. And most of these buildings in the area now are parking garages, and even they have restaurants and so forth in them. Going by the Architectural College and once again the fire station as we head down. What a lot of people look forward to is the last leg of the Boston Marathon. Is going to be coming up right ahead of us. There's an interesting place coming up on our left. It's a bar, and it's the first sports bar in America right there. And a lot of people used to call it Third Base. So anybody figure out why they would call that bar Third Base? Well, it has a pretty good reason. It is near Fenway Park, but that's not the reason. It was often said that after a baseball game, the patrons would leave Fenway Park and stop there for a quick nightcap. That's where it got its nickname, because just like third base, it's the last place you stop before you head home. Okay, not one of the funniest jokes, but it is the truth. You can see how a lot of the people are now outside practicing social distancing. A lot of the restaurants are open. There's the Prudential Center entrance itself. As we move forward, you're going to see, unfortunately, this is the general area that the marathon bombings happened. A lot of these buildings looked to our left just like they did when it happened. They were boarded up just like that. It was a sad day in Boston when that did happen. We're going to be coming up in just a second, we'll see if we can get a picture of the crosswalk that's the finish line for the marathon itself. So we're moving on, and I'm going to try to slow down. It's a lot easier in a tour bus because we're authorized to go 5 miles an hour. But if you look, it'll say finish line, Boston Marathon. There's the Boston Public Library once again to our right. We're heading down Boylston Street. And you can see off to our right, there's a lot of tents set up. There's farmers markets and people bringing fresh goods and so forth into the area. That's every day that is set up like that. We just took a right, and we're now heading up towards what is going to be Smith and Wollensky. They've done this year. There used to be an old fort, which was originally an armory. But these hotels that you see on our left is a favorite of Bill Clinton when he used to come to Boston, because there's roads all around it, so security was pretty good for the Secret Service. But Bill Clinton had a secret. No, not what you're thinking. He liked cannolis. And Bill Clinton would always send the Secret Service over to Mike's Pastry in the North End so he could actually have his cannolis. That was his favorite part, I guess, of coming to Boston. The Park Plaza Hotel here on our left is where Bill Clinton loved to stay. If you look straight ahead and to the right, you'll see that castle type thing I was talking about, which was actually back in the 1890s was an armory, and it had a moat and it had a drawbridge and the whole thing. Smith and Wollensky Steakhouse pulled out, and they're moving to Wellesley this year. Going to be turning down Stewart Street. A lot of parking garages, a lot of beautiful green spaces on our left. Statues. Used to be just all cement, and they're really doing a great job making the areas more green for people to sit out and relax. If you look in front of us, you'll see a large parking garage. Just after the parking garage on the right was one of the worst tragedies in the United States for as far as nightclubs. There was 492 people that died right on this corner at the Coconut Grove nightclub fire. Supposedly what happened was the nightclub owner, I'll finish my story. We're coming up to the theater district, and on our left and right you'll see different plays that are running in different eateries. Well, the Coconut Grove was all adorned to look tropical, so it had these big papier-mâché palm trees, and it had giant ornaments hanging from the ceiling, and it was held no fanfare. It was one of the places the elite would always go to listen to nightclub and lounge acts. Well, unfortunately, the owner was a greedy man, and he used to overload the occupancy of the facility. Well, back in that time, in the 1940s, specifically 1942, when the accident happened, a sailor was said to want to give his date a little kiss, but he wanted some privacy, so he reached up and loosened the light bulb near one of these palm trees. Well, the owner didn't want it dark, so he told the busboy, replace that light bulb, and there was said that the bartender actually saw the busboy lighting a match so he could see to get a new light bulb put in place. Within seconds, the entire facility was inflamed, was engulfed in flames. People could not get out. The doors opened in instead of out. Some of the windows were broken, so they were boarded up, and it was just a terrible incident. And it brought about a lot of changes in buildings themselves. You can't go in a boarded up building. Doors had to open out, maximum occupancies, and so forth all had to be followed. But it's a shame that 492 people had to pass away before this was realized. Coming up in front of us is going to be Chinatown. You can look off to our left and see we are actually in Chinatown at this point. Beautiful area, great food. If you ever have time, I advise you to come on in, stop at any restaurant. They're all good. And grab yourself a bite to eat. A lot of the architecture is reminiscent of China. If you look at the top of some of the buildings, you can see cupolas on top. And at one point, well, hopefully we can see it if the road's not boarded up, we'll be able to see a gate that was donated by the people of China to this area. We're going to be heading on to South Station. This is where you can board a train and pretty much head to Florida or New York. If you wanted to go for a day trip to New York and see a movie or a concert. We have a giant cement truck on our left, but we're coming up into the financial district as well. Maybe we can get a glimpse of that. And we'll be looking off to our right as we go through this light, and you'll be able to see the Route 93 that was part of the Big Dig. This is where it comes out of the ground, out of the tunnel. Off to our left, you'll see all of the financial district. And in front of us, once again, we'll be coming up to South Station. I'll try to slow down at this street up ahead so we can actually, on our left, get a look at the beautiful gate that was donated Chinatown area of Boston. I'm not sure if we'll be able to see it or if I will be yelled at by a police officer, but if you look way down the road, you'll actually see the gate. I don't know if you can see it or not, but that's the gate entrance to Chinatown. Okay, and this building, this very large building, come to find out, there was someone on my tour, a lot smarter than myself, and said, "Hey, Mr. Tour Guide, do you know what the fourth tallest building in Boston is?" And I had no idea what the fourth tallest building in Boston was, but now I do. There's a good view of South Station again, and all of the giant buildings in front of us of the financial district, Boston. I'm going to see if I can take a right up here and get us down into South Boston. Looking off to our left, you'll see the Boston Children's Museum. Beautiful place to visit, a lot of nice stuff. And on our right, way off in the distance on our right, you'll see Gillette, which was started by King Gillette, who was the inventor of that disposable razor. A lot of these buildings you see right in front of us, at one point were just all condemned buildings. Now they're artist lofts. This is the artsy area of Boston. Photography, arts, paintings, drawings all happen in most of these buildings in this area. As well as on the side streets, there are some apartments available. There's always construction, like I said, in Boston, and Up ahead is no different. They're adding another hotel. Off in the distance, you'll see those gray towers, concrete towers sticking up. That's part of the ventilation system for the Big Dig. There used to be an elevated expressway going through Boston. We mentioned the Rose Kennedy Greenway. Now everything goes underneath Boston. Off to our right, you'll see a large roof. Looks like it's sort of suspended. It's supposed to represent a ship. That's the BCEC, the Boston Convention and Expo Center, that very large building. It's the largest convention center in Boston, where they hold car shows, and they had a nice dinosaur exhibit. They have the seafood convention every year in that area, in that building. You can see all around us the construction that continues. See if I can find one of my favorite hotels on our way back. Got a little funny story about that. In front of us to the right, you'll see a building that has sort of blue outline windows. That is the Boston MEPS. That is where, if you join the military service, Army, Navy, Air Force, Marines, that is where you will ship out of. When we go by the building on the side, you'll see that it also sort of resembles the side of a large ship. So this is bringing us into the South Boston side of Boston, and I'm going to try to get us down by the Black Falcon cruise terminal. I don't know if they'll let us in. All we can do is try. This is where the cruises leave out of Boston and head to Bermuda. This is also where they have, when the tall ships come in, quite a few of the tall ships are docked or moored down in the Black Falcon terminal area. In the channel, where the terminal itself is a lot of lobster and fishing boats, part of Boston's fishing fleet. That's where they hold the Big Apple Circus. Off to your left, that tent. They hold it down in there. Just let you take in the sights for a minute. This was all just shipping buildings right up until the Big Dig actually was finished. There were a lot of buildings just like the one directly in front of us, that ugly brick building with the glass windows. That large building you see behind is Reebok, as well as Reebok is in there, but it's also the site of the Black Falcon terminals, where they hold all of their food and so forth for the next cruise that'll be heading out. They sort of changed all these roads around on us, so it's hard to actually get back to the area that the ships go to, but we'll keep making our way around and see if we can find them. It's kind of hard to believe that this whole area at one point was just ocean. We'll slip down this side road, and we'll be right at the Black Falcon terminal. You can see the side of that building that says Cruise Port Boston, the Black Falcon terminal. I don't think there's any cruise ships in right now. They usually go past the building itself. Just because of the virus, there are really no cruises even running. The worst place you want to be is actually on a cruise ship. I'm going to pull over here for a second because I want everybody to see something that's pretty special. Off to our left and far away, you almost see a tower off in the distance. Looks like a church steeple. Well, that was a man named Henry Knox. After the Battle of Bunker Hill, George Washington took over as commander of the Continental Army. So Henry Knox walks up to Washington and says, excuse me, I have an idea how to get the British out of Boston. Well, everybody thought this was a folly because we had no way of... We surrounded Boston, the Sons of Liberty and the Continental Forces, but we had no way of driving them out. Well, Henry Knox said, why don't I go to Fort Ticonderoga, New York, and get all those large cannons up there and bring them back, and we'll aim them in Boston and blow the British right out of Boston. So Henry Knox took upon the mission of going up to Fort Ticonderoga. He brought back 59 large cannons, and they had them placed all around Boston. Well, the rumors go on that they wanted to make it even more impressive, so they surrounded everything with cannons. Well, they weren't really cannons. They chopped down some trees, painted them black, and aimed them down into the city. Well, the British got wind that the colonial army had these large guns, and George Washington said, if you don't leave, I will do to you what you did to Charlestown. So the British mounted up their ships and evacuated Boston. Well, it was also known as one of the greatest hoax. Yes, we did have 59 large cannons, but we didn't have enough gunpowder or ammunition to actually fire the cannons. So that was the greatest battle that was never fought. Making our way out of South Boston back to Boston, you can see some of the fishing fleet off to the right in the channel. And in front of us, to our right, you'll see the World Trade Center. A lot of, that was the biggest convention center we had until the BCEC came in. And you can see Boston back in front of us again. You'll see more of the harbor off to our right. Always construction going on, even in the water. Yeah. Okay, that hotel right there, I don't have time to talk about it now. The tour's coming to the end. But if everybody reminds me when we talk afterwards, just remind me about the hotel and the balloon. We're heading over a bridge back into Boston, and you'll see the Boston Tea Party ship down there on our left. I don't know how well you can see it, but this is the general area where the Boston Tea Party did happen. The Eleanor, the Dartmouth, and the Beaver. No, not shows on TV. Those are the name of the 3 ships, British ships, that were parked right up here, waiting to go to the customs house with their loads of tea. The Sons of Liberty, a group in 1773, which was just citizens back then, led by a familiar name, Sam Adams. A few of the folks in the area decided that they were not happy about the tea on taxes and the East India trade deal that the British were coming up with. So, dressed as Native Americans, the group stormed down the streets, boarded the Dartmouth, the Eleanor, and the Beaver, and threw all of the tea into Boston. It wasn't actually a party, it was a revolt by the citizens over tea tax. Well, we're coming around the corner and coming to a straightaway where our tour began at the Customs House. Thank you all for joining me with the 3-part series Virtual Vacation of Boston, and stay tuned for more virtual vacations.